Tonight on Blue Mondays, we have a special episode tonight with State Senator Butch Gautreaux is joining us, and he's got some news. He's running for Lieutenant Governor, and he wants your vote. All that and more tonight on Blue Mondays for August 23rd, 2010. Good evening and welcome to Blue Mondays. We have a special episode for you. We've taken a little bit of time off, but now we're back and we have a special episode for you tonight. And I'm very pleased to have State Senator Butch Gautreaux in the studio with us tonight. And I hear you have some news for us. You're running for office? What's going on?
Yeah, for a while I've been saying that this was my last term, and I was looking forward to the end of it, that I'd done my service and it was time for me to retire. But things changed with Horizon. The Horizon explosion made me decide to run for Lieutenant Governor.
Outstanding.
I think the state really needs somebody that can get out there and sell the state.
Right.
First off, I just read a poll this morning that was done by the Associated Press, and it showed that 8% of the people nationwide believe that it's safe to eat seafood coming from Louisiana, from the Gulf of Mexico. That was devastating news to me,
right.
And I'm sure to anybody else who read that poll. As a matter of fact, I mean, this season, for the first time that I ever remember, there are shrimpers that are not going out because they have a fear that when they come in with their catch, they can't sell it for what it cost them to harvest it. Right, and that's a really sad commentary for Louisiana.
Wow. So let's take a quick step back to let our listeners and our viewers know. The thing is, I've known you now for several years. We go kind of way back, and you've served in the state senate now for how long?
This is my 10th year, 11th year actually.
And you've got the scars to prove it.
And I have the scars to prove it in the Senate, and then there were 4 years before that in the House of Representatives.
Right. So you've really done your time as a community servant, and one of the things that that most definitely has impressed me the most about you is you actually have a bit of the wonk gene. You actually like to know why we're passing legislation before it gets passed, and I like that. The amount of research you do, and really the amount of time that you spend on the budget. Tell us a little bit about your experience on the budget, especially as of late.
Well, I tell you, Stephen, we've not been in a worse condition during my length of office. Right now, we're going to probably end up with a $2 billion shortfall again next year. And that means that there's going to be further cuts to higher ed and to health care and to the things that mean the most to the people on the ground, which is a really, I hate to say it, but there's, all the work that was done by Governor Foster and Governor Blanco to improve health care and higher education in the state of Louisiana is now all being lost.
Right.
We've got somebody there that just doesn't believe it or frankly just doesn't want to spend the time that it takes to be analytical and on the budget and see how you make this thing work out.
Right. Well, and that's probably what scares me the most. I mean, the way things are set up in our state, because of all of the constitutional amendments that we've had that mandate money go to certain places, it seems that whenever it comes time to balance the checkbook, the first thing we go to is health care and higher ed. And what scares me the most in that situation is if we want to get ourselves out of the problems that we're in, you need to make investments in healthcare and higher education. So that really does have me concerned.
Another part of that is that, there are a lot of federal dollars that are tied to your investment.
Right.
So if Louisiana shows that it's going to put the money up, it automatically brings the federal dollars. We have not done that this year.
Right.
It makes no sense to me at all when you're leaving $2 on the table because you don't want to put your dollar up.
Right.
But that's exactly what's going on.
When
right
you're
now.
missing those 2-for-1 match dollars, where we only need to come up with 25%
Right.
of the whole funding, but yet we miss out on that, and so then we miss out on programs. Folks here in Acadiana know that all too well because we're still suffering from the decisions made back in the early 80s to not put in a loop here.
Right.
Okay, that's why we don't have the loop today, is because those folks wouldn't step up and meet their match in order to be able to get those federal dollars that would actually have made my commute home for 3 blocks not last a half hour. So that's definitely there. So here's what I know in talking to the folks who read my blog and watch our television show. I know one of the first questions they're going to have is, what is a lieutenant governor? Matter of fact, didn't we just get rid of the position of lieutenant governor?
Well, Governor Jindal had a bill to get rid of the lieutenant governor, and it went to committee, and the committee heard it, and then without action, they dismissed it. And, there's no interest in the legislature to get rid of lieutenant governor because that's the marketing arm of the state.
Right.
Again, I think Governor Jindal doesn't get it.
Right.
That if you don't go out there and market, tell people what you have, brag about what you
Right.
have. I mean, we've got so many things to talk about. The traditional things like the music and the food and the great scenery and all that. But right now, we're Hollywood South, and that is a market that we can really expand upon and bring a lot of dollars to Louisiana. And it's high tech.
Absolutely.
So
good jobs.
It's great jobs. It's
Right.
great jobs, mostly union jobs, by
Right.
the way, that pay really well.
Exactly. Well, I'm incredibly interested in that, especially here with our community here in the Acadiana area. We passed our fiber optics to the home, where our municipality now is running a fiber optic line to every home and business that wants it to actually compete, so that we can do that. We have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have one of the largest green screen studios outside of Hollywood right here in Acadiana.
Right.
So that we can actually do that. They can shoot today, zap it to Hollywood tonight, okay, and tomorrow they're working and editing it there.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely right about bringing the attention to the state. Now, when it comes down to the Horizon disaster, talk to me about what your thoughts are as to what you would be doing right now as Lieutenant Governor.
Well, for one thing, we've got to have somebody that can get on the national stage
Right.
and talk about all the good things that are going on in Louisiana, but also talk very frankly about what happened
Right.
and the cause and who's at fault.
Right.
At the present time, our administration is trying to tell the people of the world that it's all Washington's fault that we have that we had the explosion in the Gulf, number one, and then we have the moratorium.
Right.
When the moratorium is the effect of the explosion in the Gulf of Mexico and a lot of crime and corruption that preceded that. We found out that MMS, the Mineral Management Service, who's supposed to be the arm of government that protects us from these type of things, was just as corrupt, as the oil company that was causing them to turn their head. I don't
Right.
know what they were giving them, but we do know that the people on the rigs were turning their heads,
Right.
and we had an opportunity to not have this if there was a $500,000 part that was attached to the BOP. It would have captured that break, and we would have had no explosion.
Exactly. Which would have not led to a spill, which would not have led
Right. And then,
And they're currently using that in all of the wells that are being drilled outside of our coastal waters.
But one of the most, surprising facts that I learned during all this, we had someone from Transocean Marine testify before the Natural Resources Committee under oath, and he was asked, well, aren't the regulations in the Gulf of Mexico more stringent than any other place in the world? And he hung his head a little bit, and then he looked up and he says, we can do things in the Gulf of Mexico that you can't do in third world countries. That the regulations for drilling in deep water in the United States, in the Gulf of Mexico, are more lenient than any other place that we drill.
Right.
That was just shocking news to me.
Right.
But then after we learned about the corruption within MMS, you start to recognize that, I start to believe it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The folks who want to boil this down to just the sound bite of kill the moratorium, there's a lot more into that. Everybody wants our folks to get back to work. But my point is, and I don't know if you share this or not, but my point is, if you if you are going out and doing your 7 or 10 days on, okay, you should not be, kissing your family goodbye, wondering if you're going to have to die.
Yeah.
Because safety is not a high concern to these folks. The big dollar is. So, looking at this holistically and saying, yes, we want the oil revenue. We want to be producing this, especially as we transition to more green technologies. But there's got to be at least some baseline of safety and respect, because after all, there are a lot more fishermen that have been hurt in this situation and are still being hurt by what you said earlier than any of the folks that work on the offshore rigs.
Well, I angrily said on the Senate floor right after the Horizon explosion, I say right after, it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks after the explosion, a resolution was brought to the floor of the Senate asking the president to end the moratorium at that time. I looked at the resolution, and it was all about the loss to the oil and gas industry. And it didn't mention the loss of lives, 11 people that died on that rig, didn't mention the loss to the environment, didn't mention the loss to the fishermen that depend upon those waters to make a living, didn't mention the loss to the marshes, the land loss that we're going to have exacerbated by this. And to me, it was very disrespectful to vote forward a piece of legislation like that. And I'm afraid I got up on the Senate floor and I just really angrily said that this, I thought the moratorium was the right thing to do, that the president was correct in putting it in place, and that we needed to take a look at what's going on in that industry. And I'm correct, because even today, we don't know how bad it is.
Right.
And that's why you haven't seen anything really open up again for drilling.
Right. Well, and I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to take a top to bottom down look on this, because yes, we do want the jobs.
Oh, look,
but we want it safe.
I want everybody to I want everybody back at work today.
Right.
It's jobs is the most important issue on the public's mind today. That we've got to get people back to work. But I want them to go back to work safely.
Yeah.
Not just for the lives, which is the paramount. That's the most important thing.
Certainly.
Is the lives, but also to the safety of the waters.
Yeah.
Of the fishes.
Right. If the Gulf becomes a dead zone, like they're saying it could be, if the worst is realized there and it kills off and makes it impossible for any fish to live, that would hurt us more than any sort of 6-month pause on only deep water drilling. Let's talk about the other jobs of the lieutenant governor. Obviously, if something happens to the governor, the lieutenant governor steps up, and that's what a lot of people see the job as. But you started talking about you are basically, the lieutenant governor is there to bring business to the state. So
right.
Economic development, right?
I really believe, that's not what the position is, but I believe that the lieutenant governor's office should be the economic arm, economic development arm of the state. It just makes sense.
Right.
It goes hand in hand. But what the lieutenant governor's office is really charged to do is to promote tourism. And of course, you got to talk about all those other industries and the things that we have to offer.
Right.
Also charged with oversight over some of the state museums, not all of them. I think that it should be either in the Secretary of State's office or the Lieutenant Governor's office. I don't care which one, but I think they should all be in the same place. Politically, it makes more sense.
Certainly.
The state parks culture, recreation, all those things come under the office of Lieutenant Governor.
Which I think you're absolutely right. If you have to boil it down, that is economic development, because after all, our folks already know how great it is to live here. Right. But we need to be able to reach out and tell folks how great it is to come here and visit. So you're obviously working incredibly hard. What ultimately, you talked about the Horizon disaster that got you into this. What did your wife say about you?
Well, there was a decision between the two of us. As a matter of fact, we sat down and talked about this on several occasions. And actually, we talked about it when Mitch Landrieu ran for mayor the first time, and that was not a successful run for him. Kind of dropped it. When Mitch decided to run for mayor again, we kind of picked it up a little bit, waiting to see what was going to happen. Right. When Mitch ran and successfully, we talked about it at length, and then dropped it. I got real busy with Horizon, both in my business and legislatively, and we took a week. I went to a conference actually, and each evening we talked a little bit about it. But on that Friday, I'm watching to see if there were going to be any Democrats in the race, and I didn't see one. And Marilyn and I were having lunch together, and I said, what do you think? And she says, let's go to Baton Rouge. Let's go get you signed up.
Now, I already loved your wife, but now I love her even more for that.
Yeah.
We need a good Democrat in that.
Now, only once have I had to remind her that she said, let's go to Baton Rouge and get you signed up. But, she's on board. She's
outstanding.
She's great. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you definitely, this is a pretty big geographic state. I mean, when it actually comes down to you having to be behind the wheel and staring at the windshield, there's a lot of time to be looking at that. But I also think, I mean, just knowing you've got to enjoy going and meeting and talking to all these folks.
I'm having fun. I got to tell you that, it's a whole new experience for me, in that I've never run in a statewide race. The biggest race I've had, is of course a senatorial race, 130, population basically, and now I've got the whole state, and it's been delightful. I guess what adds to it is that I've gotten such a great reception every place that I've been. That's added to it, and then I've had a lot of people calling in to the campaign and saying, when are you coming to my area? And we're trying to satisfy that right now. Right.
Well, and you do have a website up, which it's actually going to be, we'll have it up on the screen here for folks to be able to check out your website. And on there, I was really impressed. Folks can actually sign up to get involved with your campaign. They can see your calendar. They can also see what you're talking about and some of the issues that are important. And as soon as they land on your website, probably the coolest thing is you got a video right there to be able to welcome folks there.
Yeah. I don't know about that guy in the video, though.
Trust me, I'm the biggest. I can't even look at myself when I'm on TV. I never even watch my TV shows.
Look, I'm not going to confess to how many takes it took to get that done.
Well, this is all being done in one take, gentle viewers. So, the situation as we see it, I mean, a lot of folks are going to be able to watch this either on one of the AOC channels here in Acadiana, which we broadcast out into 5 parishes, or they'll be able to see it on many places throughout the internet. With those folks, obviously, we want them to get plugged in to your website. This is a special election. So this is a quick one, a relatively quick election for you to run. So you really need folks to engage now. But it's not the next election. People might be a little confused as to when people are supposed to vote. So do you want to tell them maybe how that's going to work?
We have a first primary on October 2nd, and then we're going to run with the national elections, the congressional elections in November. Right. And it's for 1 year. I'm filling the unexpired term of Mitch Landrieu. Right. That means that I go from election cycle into campaign mode. Right. To have a full 4-year term. It's pretty hectic, but I think that I benefit from having such a condensed race.
Sure.
I wasn't prepared organizationally. Right. I wasn't prepared. But very quickly, we were able to put together an organization of volunteers. I've only got 2 paid people on my staff, and everybody's really working hard. getting things done.
I noticed.
Yeah.
You had an amazing turnout up at the annual JJ dinner for the Democratic Party. I was very impressed.
Proud of that. Yeah, we didn't know what to expect, so we really put on a show.
I loved it. And I'm telling you what, the Democrats loved it too.
Yeah.
And I am so glad to see, I saw the letter that came out with basically all of the Democrats that are in leader positions throughout the state signed on a letter endorsing you. That's going to make you proud, right? Because these are your coworkers who you don't always agree with.
Yeah, the leadership in the House and the Senate are behind me. They've endorsed me, and statewide elected officials in the past and present have gotten behind my campaign, and I am very proud of that, because that's the people that see my work every day. They know who Butch Gautreaux is and what he stands for, and also know that I'm not shy. I'm gonna I've never been reticent to express my in expressing my position.
Right.
And some some think I'm crazy for that, and others have emulated.
Well, yeah.
I have. I've talked to new legislators as they come in, and tell them about my legislative life and how easily I've been reelected each time, and I've not shied away from controversial issues.
Right.
Some of them understand it, and they've latched on, and others are afraid that they're going to lose votes or whatever over it, but. Yeah, I tell them, you are going to lose a vote here and there, and you're going to pick up votes here and there too.
Right.
Yeah,
well, it's a difficult thing too when, especially as a legislator, when you're talking about different branches of government. I think that legislators have it incredibly difficult, because there's so many different things that you have to take votes on. And if it was you alone that was simply sitting down and writing the bill, you'd pass everything. You'd vote for everything. But when it comes down to it, there are some times where you're like, no, this part right here is going to hurt my district. Or, this may be popular in my district, but it's really not the right way for us to go as a state. Or it's not the right way for us to go. And so then your job becomes educator, where you have to go out to your district and say, look, guys, this is why we need to go this way. And you may not like my vote, but this is why I did it. And this is why I think you guys should support it.
But as a matter of fact, that's exactly what I had to do in this last legislative session, because I had some bills that kind of took away things from retirees, public retirees, but at the same time guaranteed that they were going to be able to continue to have a defined benefit plan far, far into the future, which was being threatened. Increasing retirement age by 5 years. To some, they thought that was egregious, but at the same time, that is what it takes to take that liability, that unfunded liability, and make it doable. And also, in some cases, we asked for another 1% of pay to go towards their retirement.
But for someone who's 70 years old, who's already retired, and they're looking at maybe not getting any more benefits or dramatically cutting, you can't really go back to work. I mean, if you're already retired, who wants to hire you when you're 70 years old?
Right, and that was my objective, to make sure that all retirees wouldn't have any change in their benefit structure. So everything that we did was none of it was retroactive. It's for new hires only. And finally, I got everybody to come around.
Outstanding. I fully endorse that. So we're getting ready to come to the end of our program here. What would you like, if everyone watching this program right now, what would you like them to do?
I'd like them to vote for Butch Gautreaux for Lieutenant Governor. I think that's really going to make a difference in the state of Louisiana, because I have no fear when it comes to expressing what my positions are. I think that would be a refreshing change for the state of Louisiana. I think, in my district, people tolerate me, even when I do things that they don't think or that I don't reflect their position, because they know that overall I'm looking to do the best job for not just them, but the entire state. And so I've gotten support from folks that, all the way far right, and all the way far left. and that's not easy balance.
Right. It's not. And I think that it would be very difficult for someone with one brush to try and paint Butch Gautreaux.
Yeah.
Because you again take the time, you care about this state. It is definitely someplace that you're incredibly proud to represent. I'm incredibly excited about this. As I told you right from the start, I couldn't be happier to be helping you out in any way I possibly can. There are a lot of people in this race. Anything as we're signing off here that you might want to say about any of the other folks that are running?
I'd say that none of them can beat Butch Gautreaux. How's that?
I like that. I like that.
And you mentioned the website earlier. I would ask that everyone take a look at the website. You're going to see where my movement is and what my positions are on issues, and also an opportunity to pull your credit card out, and give us a few dollars, because statewide campaigns are very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And as a Democrat,
right.
and not having the corporate donations that a Republican
that some would get, right.
It makes it a whole lot more difficult. But all those $5, $10, $25 donations really do count.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you can do that, we're very appreciative of that.
It's incredibly important too for folks to realize that with the elections this season, there is a little bit of a difference from what folks might be used to in the past. Party primaries are happening actually in this next Saturday.
Right.
Okay, that's going to be for party primaries. Then folks will turn around and go back in October, and that's when they'll see state races that includes the lieutenant governor's race. Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, I want to thank you for coming in and being on our special episode of Blue Mondays. We are going to be coming back in 2011, and we're incredibly excited about that. But don't panic. You can still get progressive news and commentary from your host, Stephen Handwerk. You can check me out on the Daily Kingfish, where I write almost daily blog, where you can actually see what I'm thinking. David Vitter fans, you might not want to visit that site, just as fair warning. But we hope to see you all when we come back here next year in 2011 for an all-new season of Blue Mondays. Again, I am your host, Stephen Handwerk. Our guest tonight was State Senator Butch Gautreaux, who's running for Lieutenant Governor. Check out his website, and we look forward to seeing you guys again very soon. Thanks a lot. Good night.